Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to TTS. A little bit of a different vibe for the intro today, and a different microphone. Look at this. Wow, isn't that crazy? It's almost like my last microphone broke on me, and that's why I had to get this new one. Pretty crazy how stuff like that can happen. Anyways, though, with that being said, today's episode, we're going back in time a little bit. We're going to be talking about the NBA trades that occurred over the trade deadline, the ones that I really did not get to hit on. So we'll start off here with number one, the trade that sent Jimmy Butler to Golden State. This was an absurdly rare 5-team trade, and it finally ended the saga of Jimmy Butler in Miami. Now listen, I have no gripes with Butler as a player, not at all, but the ending of that whole situation, it was just incredibly messy on both sides. I'm just really happy that I don't need to hear any more drama regarding that whole situation. Now let's look into the trade details here. It was pretty interesting. Like I said, a 5-team trade. So the Golden State Warriors, obviously they received Jimmy Butler, 2 Miami second-round picks, and then cash consideration from Miami. For Miami, they received Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, Davion Mitchell, and a 2025 projected first-round pick via Golden State. Now, the 3 teams that got included in here were the Utah Jazz, who received KJ Martin, Josh Richardson, which I thought was funny because I just remember him kind of being pretty good for the Heat for a little bit, a 2028 Detroit second-round pick, a 2031 Miami second-round pick, and then cash consideration from Miami. The Detroit Pistons, they received Dennis Schroeder, Lindy Waters III, and a 2031 Golden State Warriors second-round pick. And then lastly, the Toronto Raptors received PJ Tucker, a 2026 Miami second-round pick, and cash consideration from Miami. Now that was a lot of words. That was a lot of stuff in that trade. And really, the only 2 important ones are Miami and Golden State. Most know that Jimmy Butler immediately signed a 2-year, $121 million contract extension as soon as the trade came out. And for Golden State, they already look great with Butler. He desperately provides a needed interior and mid-range threat, and he also provides a very imperative defensive spark for the team. It's a very good trade for Golden State, and it really could help them be competitive in the playoffs. They're really not that far back now. I think they are 1 game back, or if not tied for the 6th seed in the West, which would keep them out of that play-in window, which would be very important for them. Now for Miami, as I said, the end of the Butler saga. It's finally over. It took way too long. This was such an annoying saga for many fans. But the Heat, they had to get rid of Butler. They had to. There was no way they were going to keep him past this past trade deadline. His trade value was plummeting by the week, and if they didn't get off of him by the trade deadline, the news stories that we would have gotten out of Miami would have been wild. In all, they got like a decent return. They really couldn't have asked for much just because they knew his trade value was going down and they had to get off of him. Now for Utah Jazz, they kind of stay getting involved in these blockbuster trades. They were involved in the Luka Doncic trade, and now they were involved in this one. And this one, they got a pretty good young prospect in KJ Martin. And like I said, I completely forgot about Josh Richardson as an NBA player for a little bit. You can call me a fake fan for that, but it's Josh Richardson, all right? And then, like I said, for the Pistons and the Raptors, it wasn't incredible noteworthy returns. Schroeder can provide some meaningful veteran minutes for the Pistons, while Tucker, I believe, is already working out a buyout, or if not, they've already reached a buyout, the Raptors and PJ Tucker, because PJ Tucker does not belong on a team like Toronto. He belongs on a more competitive setting, so I think that probably already happened. If not, it's going to be happening soon. Moving on to the second big trade, it was Brandon Ingram being sent to Toronto. So the full trade details, it was a pretty light trade here. The Raptors received Brandon Ingram, and then they gave up Bruce Brown Jr., Kelly Olynyk, a top 4 protected first-round pick from Indiana, and then a 2031 second-round pick. Now for Toronto, this was a little bit confusing, but if anything, an injured player who's probably not going to play for the rest of this season doesn't necessarily hurt their current tanked situation, and maybe they think they can either like build a team in the future with him as a main piece, because when he's healthy, Ingram is a great player, or they're maybe looking to potentially buy low and sell high when they get his trade value up a little bit more, but I don't think that's what's happening. I think it's more likely the first case scenario here, where they are just simply trying to rebuild with him because they think he could be a guy that fits their timeline and they could build a good team with. Now for the Pelicans, after failing to reach an extension with Ingram, the ending to a sad, sad era in New Orleans has finally come. Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson were supposed to be an unstoppable dynamic duo together, and they showed it when they were both healthy, but that was the issue. As most know, out of a possible 499 starts they could have had played together, they only shared the court in 159 of those 499 games. That's just under 32% of the time. It's really crazy to think about. And in recent basketball history, I would say this is one of the craziest and biggest what-ifs. If these two stayed healthy and were healthy together, they could have been a truly dynamic duo, but we just never got to see that, and it really sucks when you think about it. Moving on to the third trade we got, DeAndre Hunter going to Cleveland from Atlanta. So the full trade details, Cleveland received DeAndre Hunter, while the Atlanta Hawks received Georges Niang, Caris LeVert, 3 second-round picks, and 2 first-round pick swaps. Now for Atlanta, I really thought this was a horrible trade. Absolutely bad trade. Barely really any positive return for arguably the most appealing trade piece. Now, I saw recently that Niang dropped like 28 points out of nowhere, but Caris LeVert and Niang are not going to be better for the Hawks than DeAndre Hunter was for them, especially in the long term. The second and first round picks that they're getting from this have to be great selections for this trade to make any sense for Atlanta. I don't like this trade at all for them. Now for Cleveland, this was an amazing trade. Perfect trade. Their biggest weakness prior to this trade was their lack of a true defensive, true lengthy wing defender who was capable of hitting the 3-ball at a trustworthy clip. All of those boxes are now checked off with this trade. And barring anything drastic, this could be the first non-LeBron-led Cavaliers team we see make it to the conference finals since before I was even born. And this could also be the only non-LeBron-led, that's a weird thing to say 3 times fast, I want you to try that, a non-LeBron-led Cavaliers team to make the NBA Finals. That would be the only time a Cleveland Cavaliers team without LeBron James would be in the finals in NBA history, which is just crazy to think about. Really goes to show how important LeBron James was to that franchise and has been to that franchise. But this year, there is quite a chance that Cleveland makes some noise come playoff time. Now, the fourth trade here, and this is the fourth big one that I'm going to be talking about for today, this was Kyle Kuzma going to Milwaukee. Now, the full trade details, it was a 4-team trade. Milwaukee received Kyle Kuzma, 4th-year center Jericho Sims, and a 2025 second-round pick from Washington. Now, the Wizards received Chris Middleton, guard A.J. Johnson, and a 2028 first-round swap from Milwaukee. Now, the 2 other teams to get involved in this were the New York Knicks, who received guard DeLon Wright and cash considerations, and then the Spurs, who received guard Patrick Baldwin Jr. and cash considerations. Now, the Spurs already cut ways with Baldwin, so they really just did it for the cash. And the Knicks have not cut Wright yet, but it's almost the same reason. DeLon Wright provides pretty solid depth for the team, and then also just the extra cash, you might as well take it. Now, for Washington, Kyle Kuzma was already past his peak in terms of trade value. They were not going to get a lot for him, so they got a decent return for him, arguably the best they could do given the situation. They weren't likely going to get a net positive trade from this, so all in all, this wasn't awful. If they make a good pick with that swap, it could work out, and maybe eating Middleton's contract could work out for them in the future. Now, for Milwaukee, Kuzma should be better for Milwaukee than he was for Washington, because if you know, Kyle Kuzma sucked in Washington, but he really was just kind of chucking up shots for a team that wasn't good. Now Kuzma is back on a good team, a championship level team, and Kuzma won a championship with the Lakers. Like, he knows what it takes to be on a championship level team. Can he do it? We don't 100% know, but I think this wasn't an awful trade for Milwaukee. It also opens the Bucks up to more minutes with Giannis at center. And I mean, I feel bad for Chris Middleton. He was such a pivotal piece for the franchise for the last decade, has had memorable performances in the playoffs. I know that Milwaukee Bucks fans love that man and care about that man and really did not like to see him go like that, but kind of had to do what you had to do because Middleton just has not been able to stay healthy recently. So it sucks. It sucks when such a big franchise player like that, who might not be your franchise star, but is still such an important piece to the franchise, gets traded away like that. So Kyle Kuzma definitely has some big shoes to fill, and he does have the chance to potentially fill them. Now, we got a bunch of small trades here that I'm going to talk about real quick. We got Jonas Valanciunas going to Sacramento. Sacramento received Valanciunas, and the Washington Wizards, getting back in here, received Sidi Sissoko, if you remember that name, a 2028 Denver second-round pick, and a 2029 Sacramento second-round pick. Now, for the Kings, they arguably get their best backup center with Jonas Valanciunas. I like that trade. Another good one here for Charlotte now. Yusuf Nurkic was traded to Charlotte, who also got a 2026 Phoenix first-round pick from it. And then Phoenix received Cody Martin, Vasilij Micic, and then a 2026 Charlotte second-round pick. Now, this one was a lot more under the radar, and it was actually going to be a lot more important for Charlotte if something else would have gone through, but we're going to make a note of that at the end. So we're going to move on to the next trade, and that was Quentin Grimes being traded from Dallas to Philadelphia. Dallas received forward Caleb Martin, and then the Sixers received the guard Quentin Grimes, and they also received their own 2025 second-round pick back, which has the chance to be a pretty solid pick with how bad the Sixers have played this year. And also, Quentin Grimes is not a bad player at all, so I think both sides kind of benefited from that. It wasn't a bad trade at all. And then the second to last one we got here was Bogdan Bogdanovic being traded from Atlanta to the Clippers. So the Clippers received guard Bogdan Bogdanovic and 3 second-round picks in exchange for guard Terrence Mann and Bones Highland. So Atlanta, I'm not really, once again, wasn't too sure about this one. I don't think Bogdanovic was doing too much for them, but I don't really think Terrence Mann or Bones Highland have the opportunity or the chance to be that productive or be that good for the franchise, but you never know what can happen there. I just love the name Bones Highland. It's such a cool name. And the last one we got here was Marcus Smart being moved off the Grizzlies and traded to the Wizards, once again getting in here. So for Washington, they received Marcus Smart, guard Colby Jones, a 2025 Memphis first-round pick. From Memphis, they received former second overall pick Marvin Bagley III, guard Johnny Davis, and 2 second-round picks. Now lastly, Sacramento received forward Jake LaRavia and center Alex Len, who most know was immediately waived and became a Laker. And the whole reason why I'm talking about Alex Len becoming a Laker and Yusuf Nurkic going to Charlotte not making a lot of sense is because one of the biggest things that happened was the failed trade of Mark Williams from Charlotte to the Lakers. For the Lakers, they needed a center like Mark Williams. He would have been perfect. But suddenly, at like the very last hour, the Lakers backed out, citing physical concerns and injury concerns stemming from this physical. There's a lot of cloudy water around this. There's a lot of controversy going on with this, so I'm not really going to step in on that. It's a very weird situation we got going on there. The biggest thing was just the Yusuf Nurkic trade was kind of meant to be the replacement for Mark Williams, and now Mark Williams comes back, and you have 2 pretty good starting quality centers. Maybe Yusuf Nurkic is not that good anymore, but still, he's good enough. It's a very weird situation that Charlotte has going on now, because like I said, I feel like they were planning to just use Nurkic as like a stopgap option as the replacement for Mark Williams, because they were fully expecting that trade to go through. I mean, Mark Williams had literally, I wasn't going to talk about it, but Mark Williams played a game 24 hours before this failed physical. So it just, that whole situation is so weird to me. For both teams kind of looked really messy. Charlotte looked really messy. Mark Williams, his trade value is at an all-time low right now because of that all. Just a very awkward, very weird experience that happened. It left LA scrambling for a center, and they got Alex Len, which isn't much of anything. So LA still kind of running around with Jackson Hayes as their center, who really is not that good of a center. And then for Charlotte, it's just weird, and now they have a little bit of a logjam. And I'm assuming it's quite awkward now in that locker room when you think about it. And then lastly,
Kevin Durant stayed put in Phoenix. Now, this was a pretty big rumor that I think a lot of people thought was going to happen, was Kevin Durant was going to move. And there was a quote that recently came out that Kevin Durant was like, I just didn't want to move. Like, I just didn't want to move in the middle of the season, uproot his life. And that kind of makes sense if that is the case. I mean, he's done that a lot. He's had to do that a lot throughout his career. He's getting up there in age. He's getting older. Maybe he just wants to sit down and finally settle in Phoenix for the rest of his career. Would that kind of suck? A little bit, because Phoenix is not good right now. Phoenix is not really competing for anything, which is weird because we kind of thought they would have a chance, but they've just been middle of the pack with this big three of Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant. It just has not worked at all, and they just have constantly been middle of the pack recently, so it's kind of weird. But I just want to note, like, anyone that actually thought Kevin Durant was going to go back to Golden State with Draymond Green still on that roster, like, Kevin Durant can say all he wants about being old and not wanting to move. He did not want to go to Golden State. He did not want to be teammates with Draymond Green again. There is no way he wanted that. I cannot believe that. I could not believe that would be the case, you know? So I just have to laugh at you for a little bit for that. With all that being said, though, I have talked for long enough about NBA trades and all that jazz. I hope you all have enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you have not, and if you are not subscribed, I will make sure to come to your house and deliver you a chocolate pie, but it won't be actual chocolate, so don't worry about it. With all that being said, I hope you have a great day. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.